Thank you so much for thanking the DBAC and everything they're doing, and we stand in solidarity against every cut and everything this government is trying to do to push division on our communities. Okay, I want to welcome our next speaker in a time when there is so much crisis and despair that the far right is trying to feed off of. It is so important that we have the anti-war movement with us today to stand against them. So please do give it up for Sophie Ball from the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament.
It's so amazing to see so many of you here today. Such brave, principled people who totally understand the challenges that we face today. I'm standing here sending you solidarity greetings from the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, but also as a long-standing anti-fascist activist, I am so proud to be here with you today, marching against fascism. We know we are living in incredibly dangerous times. Genocide, the threat of nuclear war higher than ever before, global economic crisis, catastrophic climate breakdown, and of course, the rise of the far right across Europe and beyond globally. Now, Starmer's war drive is accelerating and worsening all of these crises. He's whipping up fear that Britain is on the cusp of World War III. With Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, you name it, all apparently intent on destroying Britain and our so-called British values. Exactly, he's doing this to justify the hundreds and billions of pounds of public money being wasted on war and nuclear weapons. Yet his warmongering only increases the risk of war and makes us all poorer. So he's whipping up racism to divert attention away from this. Now his war nationalism, the pride in Britain's war readiness and expanding its deadly nuclear weapons is fueling the far right even more and strengthening the fascist ultranationalism of Tommy Robinson. And with the media promoting Robinson and Nigel Farage, they're doing that to create fear and hatred, to dehumanize people in order to justify war. But we've been here before, haven't we? We saw this sickening Islamophobia used to justify the illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq. And we united against it in our millions, didn't we? We united against it. And now we march in our hundreds of thousands against Israel's horrific genocide against the Palestinian people and the racism being used to justify it. And we call out the racism in the West's nuclear hypocrisy against Iran as nuclear-armed Israel back to the hilt by Trump is back to the hilt by the West, whilst Iran is bombed and threatened with sanctions. Now we know what's going on here. This is about Trump wanting to maintain the US as the nuclear superpower, and it's totally driven by racism. Trump is trying to maintain a world order that's actively facilitating genocide, driving climate breakdown and global poverty, and one that risks all of us of nuclear annihilation. But another world is possible. That's why we're here, isn't it? That's why we're all united, because we want a world of peace without racism, without fascism, where we can all live together. Globally, we need global cooperation. So now more than ever, let's unite against war and against racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, who is here representing the Morning Star, the daily paper of the left, And I want to thank the Morning Star for all the coverage that it gives us and the work that we do when often mainstream media ignore us or don't give us the attention that we deserve. So thank you to the Morning Star, and please give a very warm welcome to Calvin Tucker.
Thank you very much, and what a wonderful gathering this is, showing the strength of our communities. Let me take you back on a journey almost 100 years ago to 1930s East End of London, where working class people were locked into renting in the private slum landlord sector. Sound familiar to anybody today? Well, back in those days, the British Union of Fascists, led by Oswald Mosley, had gained some support in the East End of London. And the big issue of the day was preventing the eviction of tenants who couldn't pay their rent. And one day, a furious argument broke out in the branch of the Stepney Communist Party. A family that supported the British Union of Fascists were up next for eviction. On one side of the argument were those who said they are fascist sympathisers, leave them to their fate. On the other side was local Communist Party organiser Phil Paratin, and he argued they are workers, they are people like us, they are being attacked by the capitalists and the landlords, and our job as a movement is to protect them and defend their interests. Phil Paratin's side of the argument won the day, and the Communist Party and the left and the tenants' organisations mobilised in their hundreds to physically stop the eviction of that family, and successfully too. The outcome of that action was that that family ceased their support for the fascists and transferred it to the left. And when the Communist Party was out the following week leafleting all the tenement blocks in the East End, word had already spread like wildfire that the Communist Party and the left stood for everyone, stood for ordinary people, stood for workers, and the support for anti-fascism was built, leading to the victory at Cable Street and in 1945 to the election of Phil Paratin as Communist MP for Stepney in the East End. And of course, what's driving the discontent today is a government that promised change and delivered the same old thin gruel, or in some cases even worse, winter fuel allowance, disability cuts, cuts in living standards, etc. And it's Starmer's crushing of the left in the Labour Party that has pretty much guaranteed that it would be Reform and Tommy Robinson's thugs who are out in force today who would benefit from Labour's failure. So finally, 3 points. What do we need to do to get our people, working class people, back on side? First of all, don't fuel the culture wars. It's the loser's game. Secondly, challenge the racist narratives wherever we find them, but don't make enemies of ordinary people when we do it. And finally, let's spend less time in our social media bubbles, more time out there in our community, in the gyms, in our local parks, community centres and workplaces, because we celebrate diversity with class at its core. Thank you so much for coming out in such numbers today. United, we will win.
Thank you very much to Calvin and the Morning Star. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, who is here representing ASLEF. ASLEF, along with many of the other unions, has been a magnificent supporter of Stand Up to Racism and backed the work that we've done and mobilised for our event. So please give a very warm welcome to the General Secretary of ASLEF, Mick Whelan.
Colleagues, friends, comrades, last time I addressed you on these meetings, I said, this is my London. These are my communities. These are my unions. This is our civil society. We are the people that make this country work. And we are the people that stand together, look after each other, and will defeat the fascists. In my trade union, we went all the way to the Supreme Court to make sure we had the right of free association. And it says in our rule book, you can't be a racist and be a member of my trade union. So I bring you solidarity from the Train Drivers Union. I bring you solidarity from the Labour unions, 3.5 million of them. But let's not be naive. Some of those people, including my own, will be down the road there. And you're quite right what the last speaker said. We have to challenge the rhetoric. We have to challenge the nastiness. We have to challenge what's being told. Because what divides us is fear. What divides us is hate. But more importantly, it is class. Rather than building the houses that we need, rather than building the NHS that we need, rather than give us the education that we need, right, the rich will always turn to the right. And the way in which this fight is now being funded, it is a war against all sectors of society, against the rights of women, against the right of trans people, the rights of workers everywhere. We have to challenge that. We can't do it by just demonising them. There are those we should demonise. There are those that, I saw it on social media the other day, forgive me for a moment. Somebody put up in the New English Oxford Dictionary that farage means the dirty liquid scum in your bin. I hope it's true. And we've been here before, in the 30s, in the 60s, in the 70s. Raymond and I were at a book launch the other day for the Anti-Nazi League, and back then we could run a bit quicker. But we defeated the BNP, but it wasn't done just because we said, oh, go away. It was because we organised. It was because we fought. It was because civil society and broad-based groups, on occasion, have put aside their own politics for a greater good. We need that movement today, and I see it here today. I see it in your eyes, I see it in your way you hold yourselves, and I see it in the way in which you stand. And if we keep doing this, we will win. So 30 seconds to wind up. She knows me too well. Quite simply, as has been said, it's our battle in our country to defend our people and our communities. But we defend the people of Palestine and we fight against the right wherever they may show their nasty snake-like heads. And we will continue to do it for as long as we can, as long as we have breath. For us, for future generations, and for everybody. Solidarity.
Thank you very much, Mick. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, who has been a fantastic champion of fighting austerity, of standing up for women and against domestic violence, and standing up to racism, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and fascists in her constituency, especially over the summer. I want you to give a very big warm welcome to Afsana Begum MP.
Thank you, Sadie. The entire political and media class have been complicit in the normalisation of Islamophobic and anti-migrant rhetoric. But we know it's not Muslims or migrants responsible for political and economic failings. It's people with power and wealth like Elon Musk and Nigel Farage who are amplifying far-right conspiracy theories. Persecuting refugees and anti-migrant scaremongering does not benefit the majority of people. It does nothing to address the cost of living crisis, and traumatising already traumatised people will not fund the NHS or increase wages or solve the housing crisis. Persecuting the already persecuted will have no impact on household bills or child poverty. But the cynical
The cynical and dangerous use of scapegoating to divide people will damage our country and our communities. I come from the East End of London, where we stand in proud anti-racist and anti-fascist traditions, where time and time again we have demonstrated that we will stand together against injustices both at home and abroad. When the Jewish communities and allies opposed fascists at the Battle of Cable Street in 1936, when the murder of Azab Ali brought people out onto the streets, and when the Bangladeshi community led the anti-fascist mobilization in the 1970s, where we continue to see diversity as a strength, and where our communities include migrants from all walks of life, from all around the world, and where we know that our struggles for freedom are connected with struggles against oppression everywhere. It's in these traditions of solidarity in East London that teach us that hardship can be overcome, and it can be overcome collectively. So let's stand here and send a message to the far right to continue to spread violence and fear through their intolerance, division and hate. Not here, not on our streets, not anywhere. We are diverse, we are multicultural, we are multiracial, we are of all faiths and none, and we are from all around the world. We will not allow politicians of any party, to allow any of our diverse communities to continue to be scapegoated. We will continue to stand up for ourselves, for each other, for all of our diverse communities here in the UK, and for all those being oppressed all around the world. Solidarity. Thank you very much, Oksana. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, who is here representing the Stop Trump Coalition. You may know that Donald Trump, US President, is going to be here for a state visit, shamefully, once again next week. So Zoe is going to be telling you why it's important to come out on the streets next Wednesday, the 17th of September. So please give a very warm welcome to Zoe Gardner. Thank you, Sabi. Thank you for being here. Thank you. My name is Zoe, and like every single one of you, I stand up, and I will always stand up for migrants and their rights and the rights of all of our diverse communities in the UK. I also work with the Stop Trump Coalition, and Donald Trump has been invited to the UK, and he's landing in our city on Wednesday. And Donald Trump is just one man, but he's also the global spiritual leader of the far-right movement that is on the rise around the entire world and on our streets today. So we have to be there. We have to be there on Wednesday to stand up against him and against the politics of hate and the big, dark money that has funded his campaign and is funding the very same campaign of his disciples here in the UK. Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, the racists, the fascists, and shamefully, our government is bowing to him too. So far from standing up against racism, they have invited Donald Trump to the UK, and that is why the far right feels so powerful. That is why they are going out to be out today in such big numbers. That is why they think that they can frighten us. But we are never going to be frightened off the streets by fascists. I want to acknowledge the horrific assault that took place in Albury, a racially motivated sexual assault that has left a victim scarred in ways we can hardly imagine, and her loved ones. My thoughts and my heart is absolutely with them. But fascist and racist violence is never just violence against one person.
And that attack in Albury was intended explicitly as a threat to every woman here as well. They want to frighten us. They think they can frighten us now, but we are not afraid. We're not afraid. We're not afraid, but we're not fools either. And we can see where we're going and what's going on and what is being enabled by our government as well as others. We know that a government that bows and scrapes to Donald Trump, that fails to ever stand up to racism, that cowers and wraps itself in a St. George's cross, is a government that will open the door to fascism here too. And so we're not going to wait for anyone to come and save us anymore. We do not have any faith that the government will stand up for us anymore. We are here standing up for one another. We are going to take care of one another. We are going to take care of one another, and we always will. Solidarity.
Thank you so much, Zoe. That was fantastic and very powerful. We're going to be getting marching very, very soon. So I hope people are ready to take to the streets and tell these fascists what we think of them. Our next speaker is a fantastic friend of the anti-racist and anti-fascist movement for many, many years, and we're very proud to introduce John McDonnell MP.
Thanks. We're about to march. I'll be brief, and you've heard so many eloquent speakers. I just want to give you this warning. Many of you are very young, and that's wonderful, but there are older people here as well. And I want to remind them, because the atmosphere today reminds me of the years just before Stephen Lawrence was stabbed and murdered on the streets of London. It was the same atmosphere then, of intimidation, threat, where racists thought they could do whatever they want, even kill people. That's the warning. So there's a choice to be made, isn't there? And you're here today making that choice. And every member of society has to make the choice. Every institution in our society has to make the choice. It's whether we have a country in the 21st century that stands up for humanitarian values, basic human rights, respect for our diversity, and yes, care for one another. Because the alternative to that choice is barbarism. And we're seeing that barbarism displayed on our streets already. So we need now very, very clearly, whatever organisation we're in, whatever discussion we have, whatever article we write, whatever discussion we have, particularly with our political organisations, is to say to each one of them, you've got to make that choice. Are you on the side of humanity, or are you on the side of the barbarians that are marching on our streets today? And I just say this very briefly before we walk. It's a choice every political party has to make as well. And I say to Keir Starmer, you have to make that choice. You either stand with us or you'll be against us. And I say also, if you make that choice not to support us, not to join us in the meetings, in the demonstrations, well, maybe it's time for you to go. And I don't say that lightly. I say it on the basis of the experience of what was, the fear and the intimidation that was within our communities when the fascists first started to organise 30 and 40 years ago. That's the seriousness of the situation we're in. So today I want to say thank you, each one of you, for turning up and making that choice, the choice to stand for humanity. Solidarity.
Massive thank you to John McDonnell for fighting for humanity today on the streets. Our next speaker, I'm very proud to introduce him. We've just got
the last couple of speakers now is Kutsia Batul from the TUC, the Director of Equalities, International and Governance, and we're very proud of our relationship with the trade unions. We can see the banners out here today and we need to build on that movement. Thanks so much, Julie. Good afternoon, comrades. Fascism is once again trying to walk our streets. And this time, it wears the face of Tony Robinson, a man who has spent years of hate, inciting violence, and blaming migrants and Muslims for everything wrong in society. But this is not about patriotism. This is fascism. Trade union flag. This is George's cross. Not to bring this together. To take
They're gonna be like come back social to do that. Okay. Go ahead. Yep.